Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about Bitcoin. Now, if you've been following this channel for a while, you know that I am not much of a fan of cryptocurrency. But I got into this conversation with a young man in one of my classes, and he is a strong proponent of using cryptocurrency, particularly Bitcoin, to build and preserve wealth. So let's talk about Bitcoin today. My name is Daisy, and this is Growing Wealthy with Daisy, where I take you through my wealth journey with the hopes that it inspires you and it helps you to avoid some of the mistakes that I have made. I am a coach and a facilitator, and recently, because of my YouTube channel, I have become something of an investment educator. Now, I'm educating you based on my experience and based on what my mentors are teaching me. So don't compare me with Warren Buffett. I'm not there yet, but I'm getting there. So let's delve into Bitcoin today. Now, let's talk about why people are interested in Bitcoin. The rise of Bitcoin is very, very phenomenal. I was very young when the whole Bitcoin came out, and people were buying it back then in school. But of course, I didn't have the money to buy anything because whatever money I had was meant for feeding and feeding alone. When you're in boarding school and then you're in the university, you understand what I mean. So of course, I heard about it and I saw people who were buying it back then. I didn't see it as anything important. And then Bitcoin exploded and we started seeing it $5,000, $10,000, 20,000, 50,000, $100,000 for one Bitcoin. It's enough to make anybody interested. But as a beginning investor, as a young investor, is Bitcoin the right kind of asset to start with? Is it a good starting point in your investment journey? Let's take a look at the theory behind Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin was originally proposed as a peer to peer electronic cash system, which could allow people to transact without relying on a central financial intermediary. When we talk financial intermediaries, we're talking of things like central banks, and stuff like that. So it uses a distributed network and proof of work to establish and secure the transaction history. Okay, that's the theory. But the investment thesis that has developed around Bitcoin is somewhat broader. The theory is essentially like this: scarcity plus decentralization plus increasing adoption equals to potential long-term value appreciation. So the idea is because Bitcoin has a limited amount, I hear it's about 21 million Bitcoins that can be mined, something like that, and it is decentralized. You don't have a single central bank of any country controlling Bitcoin. And people are beginning to adopt it as a valid means of transaction. So the theory is that the price of Bitcoin will continue to appreciate in the long term as more people adopt Bitcoin as an alternative currency. And because there are only 21 million Bitcoins that can be mined, so scarcity is guaranteed. So the argument is that governments can create more naira, can create more currency from thin air, but Bitcoin supply cannot simply be increased because someone wants more of it. So if it is scarce, then it must have value. And if demand for a scarce digital asset grows while supply is constrained, the price would rise. It is a legitimate economic thesis. But here is my problem with it. Scarcity does not automatically create investment value. Yeah, that's my entire problem. So something may be scarce and still worth very little. Now, Bitcoin needs sustained demand, or its scarcity would no longer matter. So now that we've gotten that about Bitcoin, why would I not advise a young investor like myself to invest in Bitcoin? I use invest because I don't see Bitcoin as a valid investment. I see it as a speculative investment. It's something that when you have done your valid investments, you've done your groundwork, and you have a little money to spare to play around with, you can now say, okay, let me put it into Bitcoin. That's how I see Bitcoin. Okay, it's something that you can play around with when you have built your foundation of wealth. So, 5 reasons I would not recommend Bitcoin as a starting investment for a novice, for a young investor like you and I. Number one, Bitcoin does not produce income. Stephanie, I love businesses that produce income. I like businesses like poultry because you can see the eggs, you can see the birds. Okay, yes, and I like food. So yeah, I would like businesses like that. Like Dangote Sugar, you see the production, you see what's coming out, you can quantify it. So this is, I think, the main reason why I do not like Bitcoin as a starting investment. Because if you buy a bond, for example, you receive interest. Okay. If you buy shares in a profitable company, the company generates revenue and may pay you dividends. You buy a rental property, it will give you rent. But Bitcoin produces none of this cash flow by simply being held. So your return depends primarily on somebody willing to pay more for your Bitcoin than you. That's when you want to sell it. That's just the, you buy, you hold, you pray that somebody wants it more than you do, and then you sell it. It does not make Bitcoin worthless. On the contrary, but I prefer investments that actually yield cash flow. But that's just me. The second reason I would not recommend Bitcoin to a beginning investor, to a novice investor, is that it is extremely difficult to value. Now, with an organization, with a company, let's say Dangote Sugar, you can analyze its revenue, you can analyze its earnings, you can analyze its assets, its debts, its cash flow, its profit margins, its dividends. Fundamental analysis, you can do all that on a company. You can build a valuation model. But with Bitcoin, there's no corporate earning to discount. So when someone tells you Bitcoin is going to be 500 million, you have to ask based on what valuation model. You cannot essentially predict that with certainty that this would go in this direction or in that direction because there is no valuation model for it. So it makes it hard in terms of analyzing it. And it's something I cannot analyze. I'm a little bit skeptical about it. The third reason I would not advise a beginning investor to invest in Bitcoin is because of the volatility involved. This volatility can destroy a beginner's investment behavior. Okay, let's assume that you bought, because most of us who are beginners, we can't even afford one Bitcoin. One Bitcoin is like 100 US dollars, 100K US dollars. Where you see that kind of money. Okay, let's assume that it's even 50,000 US dollars. We know we are not there yet. So with your 20,000, 30,000, 50,000, 100,000 naira that you want to invest, would you not go and tie it down on a product that is so volatile that today it may make you 100% returns, tomorrow it may wipe out your entire savings? Like your entire investment gone overnight. You start from scratch. That is not a very, very palatable thing to think about. So no, I will not invest in, I wouldn't encourage any young person, any young investor to invest in Bitcoin. I think that Bitcoin is good when you already have your wealth basis, you already have the investments that are giving you daily income, you have the ones that are giving you monthly income, and you have the ones that are appreciating in value in the stock market. Then you can maybe put 5% of your total net worth or even 3% towards something like Bitcoin, so that even if it is wiped out, you will not feel the burn. The fourth reason I do not encourage young investors, novice investors, to invest in Bitcoin is that it encourages the wrong wealth building mindset. Wealth building is a marathon. If you don't have the right mindset, you will not be able to do it, and you say it is a scam. But it's a scam. A novice investor, a young investor, ideally should learn how to earn, control spending, save, protect what you have saved, invest it wisely, allow compounding to do its work, and repeat the process. But with Bitcoin, you have a completely different model. You have a buy. As you buy it, you wait, you hope the price goes up and you sell. So what happens when the price goes down? You still end up selling and you sell at a loss. Now, this encourages investors to focus on price appreciation rather than wealth creation. There's nothing inherently wrong with wanting capital appreciation, though. It's just that if you have not learned how to build a diversified portfolio of productive assets, then Bitcoin can become a distraction from the fundamentals. The fifth reason I do not encourage young investors, novice investors, to invest in Bitcoin is the opportunity cost is enormous. Goodness. I mean, okay, let's look at it this way. Suppose a 25-year-old had 100,000 naira to invest every month. Okay. Now, this person has limited capital. Even 100,000 is too much. Let's assume that you have 50,000 naira to invest every month. So the question now isn't, can Bitcoin make money? The question is, what is the best use of my limited capital when building my financial foundation? Would Bitcoin serve as a good store for your emergency fund? Will Bitcoin assist in your opportunity fund? Will Bitcoin serve as a buffer? No, it can't do all this. So I think as a young investor, you should focus on building your buffer fund, your emergency fund, your opportunity fund. You should think of diversifying your portfolio, investing in bonds, investing in shares, stuff like that. Building your retirement asset, particularly for those of us who do not work in organizations that there is a pension fund. You have to start building your pension fund as it is by yourself. You have to increase your skills in order to increase your earning powers. These are better uses of that your 50,000 naira monthly than investing in Bitcoin that may go up today or may wipe you out tomorrow. So I think that for beginners, for young people, for people who are just entering into the world of investing, that you should first of all build your financial foundation. Then Bitcoin comes like later when your financial foundation is stable. You can now use it to speculate because there's nothing inherently wrong with speculating. It's just that when you speculate and it wipes out your entire basis, then you're being foolish now. And we are not foolish on this channel. So basically, this is what I will say. Bitcoin is not a bad asset. It is just that it is a difficult asset for beginners to build a financial plan around. I've been investing for 14 months now, and I do not own a single cryptocurrency because I am still building my wealth foundation. The target is to build a retirement fund that I can live off the interest payments. I can live off the dividends payment. So that is the target. That is the goal. And Bitcoin will distract me from that goal. So I am not currently invested in Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency. Now, Bitcoin is fascinating and the theory behind it is fascinating. It has genuine technological characteristics, but a fascinating technology is not automatically a good investment for every investor. I'll give you an example. Remember the SpaceX IPO that most of you rushed in with your 20,000, 30,000, 50,000 naira to buy? How did that turn out for you? So I rest my case. I think we all know where we stand. So however, once your wealth foundation has been established, then I think Bitcoin should be considered for what it actually is, a high risk alternative or speculative asset, and not the foundation for wealth building. So I'm going to conclude by saying this: Bitcoin is not necessarily a bad asset, but it is a bad place for a beginner to start. So if you stay to the end of this video, give me a thumbs up, like, share, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.